AgWeek Weather is sponsored by Bremer Bank. Connect with a banker today at bremer.com.
Will the weather be favorable for harvest as combines start rolling in the region? Here's John with our Agri-weather outlook.
Finally, some semblance of a pattern change, evidence that the weather will be turning significantly colder across the upper Midwest, Northern Plains, Southern Canada region. Is this permanent start of a hard winter? Not necessarily, but that will bear itself out over time. For the time being, the transition will likely yield southwest to northeast jet stream winds, and that tends to be a stormy pattern. Where the precipitation gets laid down, that remains to be seen, but it does look like we are in for a wet period in some parts of the northern plains and the upper Midwest, at least this coming week. Now, we start out the weekend with some pretty warm temperatures building up into the northern plains. Jet stream still nice and far up north. Cold weather, though, is brewing, building over the western part of Canada. And as this ridge of high pressure this week gradually builds into the east, troughiness starts building in the west. Storm system eventually will break away coming out of California. And this is what we're watching. Southwest to northeast flow of the jet. If these two streams consolidate into one major pattern, there could be a major storm. Not certain that's going to happen. I think it may be a little bit diffuse, but nevertheless, the potential is there for some precipitation. And as temperatures drop, there will likely be some of that falling in the form of snow. By the dark blue and cold, that's where I'm demarking temperatures near or below freezing. So this is definitely a switch in the weather pattern as we go through this week. Still pretty warm down south, though, and much of the eastern U.S. will be quite warm, even the eastern Corn Belt. This will likely send a layer of shallow cold air, though, down even into Texas, where they may have some weather that's only in the 40s and 50s, and we'll likely see some days near or just above freezing in the northern plains. Now, as we transition toward that first few days of October, I don't expect the cold to linger. If there is a layer of snow that gets laid down in some swath across the high plains in particular, that will cause the freezing weather or near freezing weather to linger longer. Where it doesn't snow, it's likely to pounce back up at least into the 40s and 50s, although I do think the general trend for the start of November will be for some much cooler weather in the northern plains and the western part of the upper Midwest. Now, about precipitation. This is a bit of a guess because we're looking at the pattern prematurely, and it's a pattern change, which means there are going to be day-by-day changes, but I do look for a fairly large area of rain, not necessarily excessive, but wet weather that will in some region across the northern Great Plains likely turn into snow. For the second week of the pattern, looks a bit more tranquil. Some showers and thunder showers east, the west remaining dry, and lighter precipitation throughout most of the Great Plains.